Hi everybody, this is Alan Ellman, the blue collar investor, with today's covered call writing question of the day. And today's question comes from a member that's very typical of a lot of questions I've been getting lately as it relates to covered call writing and dividend distribution. So here's a sample question. Hi Alan, I'd appreciate your comments on the following. I own Altria, ticker symbol MO. On April 15th, I wrote a 30-day call, which will expire worthless on May 18th. Altria pays a dividend of 5% per year. For the second quarter, the ex-date is June 10th, which means that it's likely the stock will be called away a few days before June 10th, and I will lose my dividend. As I stated, I usually write 30-day calls. However, if a stock pays a healthy dividend, it seems to me to make sense to write the call for a longer time frame, like 3 to 6 months, which would mean that the next two ex-dividend dates, I'll be the owner of record, and therefore, at least for the next 2 quarters, I will not risk losing that dividend. Again, very, very typical question I get from many of our members, and that's why I'm producing this video. So let's take a look at a screenshot, basically summarizing the information that was just given in that last question. So the member writes 1-month calls, which I think most BCI members also do, and it distributes a 5% dividend. Now, 5% means the annual return, not a quarterly return. So the approximate quarterly return would be 1.25%. If we break that down further, it's approximately 0.4% per month, less than 0.5% per month. So right off the bat, you could see that it pales in comparison to our returns for writing covered calls. Now, what is the likelihood that our shares will be exercised and sold early prior to the X date? That's the question. That's the concern of this particular question and many other of our members that focus in on dividends. And so that's something we're going to have to analyze. And finally, will writing longer term calls, not 1-month calls, but maybe calls as far out as 6 months, solve the problem? So that being said, let's take a look at some points to consider as it relates to the question. Now, as you know, I never give specific financial advice. Our site is all about education. So here are the things that you, as a covered call writer, needs to consider as it relates to dividend distribution. I think it's very important that we all identify the strategy that we're using. Now, that may seem very simplistic, but I think you got to focus in on what your goal is here. Is it covered call writing, or is it dividend capture? If you could focus in on just one of those two strategies, your chances of success are that much greater than if you try to balance both of them. Second point, what are your goals? What are your monthly return goals? I've made it quite public that my goal is 2 to 4% a month. Now, if that's your goal, then how important is that less than 0.5% dividend that you may be doing all kinds of histrionics to capture when you have it right there with your covered call option? Just some food for thought on that. Finally, what is the likelihood, and not finally, but continuing on, what is the likelihood of early exercise? That means that the shares being sold before expiration Friday. Well, one of the most important things to look at here is what is the time value left on the option premium. If the time value remaining on that option that you sold is less than the dividend about to be distributed, then the likelihood of early exercise the day before the X date is much greater. It's not guaranteed, and the reason it's not guaranteed is because many retail investors are not aware of dividends. They're not aware of ex-dividend dates. So even though it may be to their advantage to exercise early, many do not. But Again, the likelihood is greater if the time value is less than the dividend about to be distributed. Okay, now, two things you can consider instead of longer term options. One is just rolling the option 2 days or earlier prior to the X date. In other words, buying back the current month option and selling the next month option. So that will be one way of avoiding early exercise. Another is just not selling the option that particular month. So if you own Altria and you want to capture the dividend, if that's important to you, then 4 months out of the 12, you just simply won't sell the call option, or you'll sell it after the X date. Finally, what about using longer term options? Well, here we have a perfect example of why balancing two different strategies can create issues for you. If you write longer term options, I guarantee you that the amount that you're going to lose on an annualized basis is going to be a lot greater than the dividend that you're going to capture. Just go to any options chain, take a look at a 1 month return and multiply it by 12. Then take a look at a 6 month return and multiply it by 2. And you'll see how much money you're going to lose or not generate by using longer term options. In addition to that, a longer term option will require you to go through multiple earnings reports, which creates a lot of risk. So by changing things around and using different ways of a covered call strategy in order to capture less than 0.5% dividend may create more issues than it makes it worthwhile doing. That's something you have to decide. However, if you do want to capture that dividend and it's very important to you, you might want to consider either not writing that month or rolling the option. Again, just some food for thought. So thanks to all of our members who asked questions relating to dividends and covered call writing. I think it's an important subject to cover, and that's why I produced this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you benefit from it. As always, this is Alan Ellman, the Blue Collar Investor. Take care, everybody.